afternoon, everyone. This is Jared Rand, and welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Friday, October 28th, 2022, after 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be having a reverse aging health call tonight at 9 p.m. When one's own true nature is known, then there is being without beginning and end. It is unbroken awareness, bliss, Sri Ramana Maharishi. It has been said throughout the ages that all of the emotionally painful and traumatic events that we've all experienced in this life were here to awaken us. Each event is a sort of spiritual fertilizer that provides the essential nutrients to create optimum growth. The proverbial shit of life simply pushes us deeper inside our being, where we are forced to grow, stretch, and discover more forgiveness, gentleness, and compassion for ourselves. Life contains this sacred setup, so you're guaranteed to have an awesome spiritual adventure. And we are all waking up in a variety of very unique ways. To become fully enlightened, we must first see how we have been indoctrinated, programmed, and conditioned by our parents, family, the media, and formal education system to ignore that there is a divine magical power within us all. Our entire society has become deeply unaware of the profound ancient truth engine. For many centuries, we have been put to sleep to this spiritual understanding collectively. And often it requires quite a radical event in this life to uproot our old thinking and shake us awake from our long, deep slumber. So whenever something is happening in the outer world that scares you, remember that it is sacred fertilizer from the universe. It is meant to wake you up to deeper healing, energy inside. Now, perhaps your mind is thinking that the title of this information is a bit ridiculous. In other words, how you can become enlightened in the next 5 hours. Now, it does require something heavy duty to wake us. It's got to be radical. It can't be light or easy, so to speak. Now, how can any of us become enlightened in 5 hours? It's good to know the depth of our doubt equals the level of our indoctrination into the matrix. It's good to know that the depth of our doubt equals the level of our indoctrination into the matrix. So for the next week of your life, I want you to try out something completely new. Imagine that you are not who you think you are. You're not Ben Johnson or Debbie Smith. You're not any of that. Try to imagine that you are beyond all the limiting ideas which your mind has imposed upon you. Give yourself a permission slip to be free from all your boxes of thinking and believing about who you are. Now, the information I'm about to share with you is based on a 1,500-year-old yogic science that is very powerful. You choose, if and when you choose, to devote the next year of your life to learning this ancient technique, you will relieve yourself from decades and perhaps lifetime of future suffering. Now, the teaching comes from the wisdom of Patanjali, who is the founder of yoga. And basically, these are instructions from a great master who saw that enlightenment is a possibility for every human being. Never exclude yourself from this possibility. Enlightenment is an opportunity to become free from all human sufferings. All human suffering. And also live the most enjoyable, healing, fulfilling, and orgasmic life you could ever imagine. Isn't that what we are all seeking? Many people, I don't believe, are really looking for enlightenment. Unfortunately, they're distracted. So you've got to ask yourself if you're ready to become enlightened. And the first step is to practice redirecting your focus towards the source where your thoughts are coming from. And notice where this next thought is arising from. And hold your attention there. You don't have to cognitively locate the physical neurons in your brain where the thought is coming from. That's not the point. This is an exercise of simply turning your attention within towards the divine, creative, infinite source from where every experience of this life is emanating from. Now, when you can hold your undivided attention on the source of thought for 2 minutes in a row, you will enter the official state of meditation. This is according to Patanjali. When you can extend the meditation time to 28 minutes in a row, you'll reach the first level of bliss called samadhi. When your mind, body, and awareness are strong enough to remain for 5 hours in a row of full unbroken awareness of the source of thought, you will completely awaken from Maya, the grand illusion, and become an enlightened being like Buddha and Christ. So now you understand what the real practice of yoga was created for, and what did you have planned for this weekend. Remain in wonder if you want the mysteries to open up for you. Answers are dangerous. They kill your wonder. Osho. The reason these techniques work is because whatever you place your attention on grows. You hold your attention on any one particular thing, loads of universal energy pour into it, and it becomes your God. Everything you experience in reality comes from whatever your mind dwells upon. Whatever you believe the truth, reality, or existence is, it comes from the length of attention that you are giving to it. You can step out of suffering and enter nirvana. Your 5 senses, see, feel, smell, taste, and touch, the outer world, yet your imagination is responsible for creating pleasure or suffering out of this. All the suffering that you've experienced in your entire life has been generated by your mind interpreting, judging, and resisting or attacking some idea about someone or something in the outer world. I'm not talking about physical pain as much as human suffering. The suffering of humanity comes from over-identifying with the mind and not knowing the spiritual truth of who we are. The reason the mind cannot remain focused in one direction for very long is because of the layers of emotional and mental pain that are stored in the memory of the human body. The longer we sit still in silence and meditate, the more feelings of anxiety, irritation, uncomfortableness, and fear will start to bubble up out of nowhere and take over. We may be focused and deeply relaxed when all of the sudden our mind jumps to some random event 2 weeks ago. The traumas inside us that bubble up have been collected and stored inside our energetic bodies because we did not process and integrate them fully at the time they occurred. To be able to sit and meditate for 5 hours in a row, we must fully release all these old stuck past pains from our DNA. We must choose to fully allow the negative mental, emotional energy to be fully re-experienced in a new light. This happens by welcoming the uncomfortable emotional energy into the light of our pure consciousness. If the negative energy does not release by simply giving it your full loving presence, you may need to use your breath, movement, sound, intention, and a deeper relaxation before it shifts. When you feel the emotional release come through, your body and mind will feel energetically lighter. In this lightness, you rest back into the state of pure awareness, emptiness of the mind, and relax deeply into the healing feeling that the trauma was released from your body. Anxiety cannot be dissolved through thinking because thinking itself is a sort of anxiety. Also, by abiding in the awareness of this every day of our lives, we will one day purify the body from all the stored traumas and karmas, sanskaras, become enlightened. This path is a science, and it is proven by the ancient masters. It is 100% guaranteed. Remaining in a pure state of relaxation and awareness is all it takes. Whenever the mind jumps to focus upon is never going to be as amazing as the bliss of entering samadhi. Being devoted to this one simple truth is vital if we want to transcend suffering, spiritually awaken, and completely liberate our lives. We must choose to practice something every day if we want to get good at it. We must choose to understand that we won't be able to keep our attention only on the source of thought in the beginning months. It may take you up to 3 to 6 months of daily practice before you see or feel any results. The key is not to get wrapped up in the thoughts or judgments themselves of what this practice is about. The goal of meditation is enlightenment. With deep determination, you'll start tapping into your pure unlimited power and infinite potential as a soul. Yet, You must choose to devote yourself first to being present for just 2 full minutes of pure undiluted attention toward the source of thought. Sharpen the blade of awareness every day and you will get there. Once you reach 2 minutes, you will begin feeling lighter, freer, and clearer on the inside. You will feel the difference. I guarantee it. To cling to life is to cling to the 5 senses, to normal consciousness, thereby shunning the superconsciousness within which the Atman is known. Patanjali Sutras from How to Know God. Life is an amazing adventure our souls are here to explore. No matter what happens in our outer world, it is all for our soul's growth and spiritual evolution. Everything that occurs is not by chance, yet part of a divine play that we set up to elevate our consciousness and cause us to grow spiritually. Many of us have forgotten this, yet we understand to remember that we are divine. We are born as super powerful manifesting supreme beings who can create anything that we desire. And once we know in our hearts this deep and direct truth, we won't have another problem in our lives. Everything will become an opportunity to explore. It's good to know that we are deeply interconnected, and we're a deeply interconnected network of beings on this planet. And when enough people are living in a higher state of mind, whether it is relaxed, at peace, in love, or enlightened, then the 100th monkey effect will take place. This means that this higher elevated consciousness will exponentially spread throughout everyone on this entire planet. It's a matter of milliseconds. In a matter of milliseconds, all 8 billion plus people will spontaneously feel lighter, freer, and more at peace for no apparent reason at all. Remember that this life is not about satisfying our ego, for that would only bring temporary happiness. We are here to connect deeply with the minds, hearts, and souls of this entire planet and experience being one family of love and light. Do this, and you'll raise your consciousness to the highest peak. Ecstasy is our very nature. Not to be ecstatic is simply unnecessary, Osho. When we make these spiritual explorations the number one priority in our day, we will experience a multitude of amazing things. This radically alive lifestyle is a constant choice that we consciously make before we start our day. If we found these experiences of learning how to become enlightened have assisted us in feeling more enlightened in some way, wonderful. Keep doing them all week long. When you're ready, you will learn more. And it's a choice. No one's going to force you, make you, or cajole you, or trick you. That's just not the way it's going to be. You make the decision. Now, why is hugging such an incredibly effective therapeutic tool? Now, I used to think that clarity, wit, and analysis was the way. But they're all garbage compared to hugging. We all need to be needed. It is one of the most fundamental needs of human beings. Unless one is cared for, one starts dying. Unless one feels that he or she is significant to somebody, at least to somebody, their whole life becomes insignificant. Hence, love is the greatest therapy there is. This world needs therapy because the world is missing love. In a really loving world, no therapy will be needed at all. Love will be enough, more than enough. Hugging is only a gesture of love, of warmth, of caring. The very feel of the warmth flowing from the other person melts away many illnesses in you. Melts the ice-like cold ego. It makes you a child again. Psychologists are well aware of the fact that unless a child is hugged, kissed, he misses some nourishment. Just as the body needs food, the soul needs love. You can give the child all the physical needs, all the physical comforts, but if hugging is missing, the child will not grow into a wholesome being. He will remain sad, uncared for, neglected, ignored, somewhere deep down. He was nursed, but he was not mothered. It has been observed that if a child is not hugged, he starts shrinking. He can even die, although everything else was provided for. As far as the body is concerned, every care was taken, but no love surrounded the child. He became isolated. He became disconnected with existence. Love is our connection. Love is our very root. Just as we breathe for the body, it is absolutely essential. Stop breathing and you are no more. In the same way, love is the inner breath. The soul lives by loving. Analysis won't do it. Wit and clarity, knowledge and scholarship won't do it. You can know all there is to know about therapy, and you can become an expert, but if you don't know the art of love, you remain only on the surface of the miracle of therapy. The moment you start feeling for the patient, for the one who is suffering, out of 100 cases, 90 people are suffering basically because they have not been loved. If you start feeling the patient's need for love, and if you can fulfill that need, there will be almost a magical change in the patient's condition. Love is certainly the most therapeutic phenomenon. Now, Sigmund Freud was very much afraid of it. He was afraid of love. So much so, hugging was beyond the question. He was not even ready to face the patient, because listening to his misery, listening to his inner nightmares, he may start feeling sympathetic. His eyes may become wet. Tears may start flowing. Or maybe in an unguarded moment, he may hold the patient's hand. He was so afraid of any loving relationship between the therapist and the patient that he created a certain device. The patient has to lie down on the couch, and the psychoanalyst has to sit behind the couch so they are not facing each other. And remember one thing, it is by facing each other that love grows. Animals cannot grow love because they make love to each other without facing each other. So there is no friendship, no relatedness. Once they are finished with lovemaking, they go their ways separately. Not even saying a thank you or a goodbye or see you soon. Animals have not been able to create friendship, family, society, for the simple reason because when they are making love, they are not looking into each other's eyes. They are not looking into each other's faces, as if their lovemaking is almost mechanical. There's no human element in it. Man created the whole dimension of all kinds of relationships for the simple reason that he is the only animal who makes love facing each other. Then the eyes start communicating. Then the facial expressions become a subtle language. Then the changes of mood and emotions, the joy, the ecstasy, the orgasmic glow, and intimacy grows. Intimacy is needed. It is a basic requirement. Hence, it is good to make love in light, not in darkness. At least a dim light, candlelight. Making love in darkness is just something animal in us, avoiding facing each other, a strategy to avoid. Sigmund Freud was very much afraid of love. He was afraid of his own repressed love. He was afraid that he may get into some entanglement, involvement. He wanted to be just outside, not to be involved with the person, not to become part of his inferiority, not to enter into deep waters, but just to remain a scientific observer, aloof, detached, cool, far away. He wanted to create psychoanalysis. As if it is a science. It is not a science, and it is never going to be a science. It is an art, and it is far closer to love than to logic. And the real psychoanalysis will not avoid getting deep into the inferiority of the patient. You will take the risk. It is risky. It is going into troubled waters. You may be drowned yourself. After all, you are also human. You may get into some trouble, complexity. You may create some problem for yourself, but that risk has to be taken. That's why Wilhelm Reich is quite interesting. He's the man who transformed the face of the whole of psychoanalysis by getting involved with the patient. He discarded the couch. He discarded his detached aloofness. He is a far greater revolutionary than Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud remained traditional. He was really afraid of his own repressions. If you're not afraid of your own repressions, you can help tremendously. If you're not afraid of your own unconscious, if you've solved your problems a little bit, you can help greatly by getting involved in the world of the patient, by becoming a participant rather than remaining just as an observer. Because of psychoanalysis, they have their own problems, sometimes even more than the patient himself. One can understand Sigmund Freud's fear. As far as I'm concerned, I would like to make a categorical statement about it. Unless a person is really awakened, enlightened, he cannot be a real authentic therapist. Only a Buddha can be a real therapist because he has no problems left. He can merge and melt into the patient. In fact, for him, the patient is not the patient at all. That's the difference between the relationship that exists between a patient and his therapist and the relationship that exists between a disciple and a master. The disciple is not a patient. The disciple is a beloved, a loved one. The master is not just an observer. He has become a participant. They have lost their separate entities. They have become one, and that oneness helps. Hugging is only a gesture of oneness. Even the gesture helps. So when you ask, why is hugging such an incredibly effective therapeutic tool? It is, and it is only a gesture if it is true. Not only a gesture, but your heart is also in it. It can be a magical tool. It can be a miracle. It can transform the whole situation instantly. A few things have to be understood about it. One is the idea that the child dies and the man becomes adolescent, then the adolescent dies and the man becomes young. When the young man dies and he becomes middle-aged, and so on and so forth, is wrong. The child never dies. Nothing ever dies. The child is there, always is there, wrapped by other experiences, wrapped by adolescence, then by youth, then by middle age, then by old age. But the child is always there. We are just like an onion, layers upon layers upon layers. But if you peel the onion, soon you will find fresher layers inside. Go on deeper, and you'll find more and more fresher layers. The same is true about man. If you go deep into him, you will always find the innocent child. And to contact that innocent child is therapeutic. Hugging gives us an immediate contact with the child. If you hug somebody with warmth, love, if it is not just an impotent gesture, if it is meaningful, significant, and true, if your heart is flowing through it, immediately you come in contact with the child, with the innocent child. And the innocent child, even for a single moment, surfacing makes a tremendous difference because the innocence of the child is always healthy and whole. It is uncorrupted. We have reached the innermost core of the person where no corruption has ever entered. You have reached the virgin core, and just making the virgin core throb again with life is enough. You have triggered a process of healing. Every child is so fresh, so alive, so full of zest that his very aliveness makes him healthy. Now, if and when you can touch the child and the patient in any way, and hugging is simply one of the most important things. Analysis is the way of the mind. Hugging is the way of the heart. The mind is the cause of all diseases, and the heart is the source of all healing. A man walks into a psychiatrist's office and says, "Doc, I'm going out of my mind. I keep thinking I am a zebra. Every time I look at myself in the mirror, my entire body is covered with black stripes." The psychiatrist tries to calm him down. "Take it easy, steady, steady," he says. "Now just calm down. Go home, take these pills, get a good night's sleep, and I'm sure the black stripes will completely disappear." So the poor man goes home and returns 2 days after. He says, "Doc, I feel great. Got anything for the white stripes?" But the problem continues. Once it happened, somebody brought a mad young man to me. The young man had a crazy idea that flies had entered his body through his nose or mouth in his sleep, and that they go on whirling inside. So, of course, he was in great trouble. He would turn this way and that. He could not even sit rightly because of those whirling dervishes inside. He could not sleep. A continuous agony. Now, what do you do with this man? So I told him, lie down on the bed, have a good 10 minutes rest, and we will do whatever we can do. Right? I covered him with a sheet so he could not see what was happening, and I ran over the whole house to catch a few flies. It was difficult, but I had never done that before, but my experience of catching people helped. Somehow I got 3 flies, put them in a bottle, brought them to the man, made some hocus-pocus passes over him, and then told him to open his eyes, and I showed him the bottle. He looked at the bottle. He said, "Yes, you have got some, but only the smaller ones. The big ones are still here, and they are so big. Now it is difficult from where to get such big flies." He said, "I'm very, very grateful to you. At least you got rid of the smaller ones. But the big ones are really very big." People go on. If you help them from one side, they will bring the same problem from another side. As if there is a certain deep necessity to try to understand it. To live without a problem is very difficult, almost humanly impossible. Why? Because a problem gives you a distraction. A problem gives you an occupation. A problem gives you busyness. Without any business, a problem engages you. If there is no problem, you will not be able to cling to the periphery of your being. You will be sucked by the center. And the center of your being is empty. It is just like the hub of a wheel. The whole wheel moves on the empty hub. Your innermost core is empty. Nothing, nothingness. Void, abyss-like. You are afraid of that emptiness, so you go on clinging to the rim of the wheel. Or, at the most, if you are a little daring, then you go on clinging to the spokes. But if you never move toward the hub, one starts feeling afraid, shaky. Problems help. Some problem to solve. How can you go within? People come to me and they say, we want to go within, but there are problems. They think that they're not going within because of the problem. The real case is just the opposite. Because they don't want to go within, they are creating problems. Let this understanding become as deep in you as possible. All your problems are all bogus. I go on answering your problems just to be polite. They're all bogus, basically meaningless. But they help you to avoid yourself. They distract you. It seems, how can one go in? There are so many problems first to be solved. But one problem solved, immediately another bubbles up. And if you look, watch, you will see the other problem has the same quality as the first. Try to solve it. A third one comes up, immediately substituted. So I'll tell you an anecdote. Psychiatrist. You teenage kids are a menace. You have no sense of responsibility. Forget about the material things and think of other things like science, mathematics, the like. How are you on math? The patient says, not very good. I will give you a test for your factual information. Now give me a number. Royal 3447. That is the store where my girl works. I don't want a phone number, just an ordinary number. All right, 37. That's better. Now another number, please. 22. And again, 37. So fine. See, you can get your mind working in other directions if you want to. Correct. 37, 22, 37. Boy, what a figure. Again, back to the girlfriend. If not through the phone number, then through the figure. This goes on and on and on ad infinitum. Look at the essential thing. Why do you want to create problems in the first place? Are there really problems? Have you asked the most essential question to yourself? Are there really problems, or are you creating them, and you have become habituated to creating them, and you keep their company, and it feels lonely if there are no problems? You would even like to be miserable, but you would not like to be empty. People even cling to their miseries, but are not ready to become empty. They see it every day. They see a couple, they're fighting for years. They say they have been fighting 15 years, married for 15 years, and continuously fighting and creating hell for each other. And then why don't you separate? Why are you clinging to misery? Either change or separate. What is the point of wasting your whole life? But I can see what is happening. They're not ready to be alone. At least misery gives them company. And now they don't know how they are going to manage their lives if they separate. They have become adjusted to a particular pattern of continuous conflict, anger, nagging, fight, violence. They have learned to the trick of it. Now they don't know how to be in another situation with somebody else with a different personality. How to be with someone else. They don't know anything else. They have learned a particular language of misery. Now, they feel skill, efficiency in it. To move with a new person, again, will be starting things from ABC. After 15 years of remaining in a certain business, one starts feeling afraid to move in another. A great film star who went to a psychiatrist and said, I have no talent for music, no talent for acting. I'm not a beautiful, handsome person. My face is ugly, my personality is very poor. What should I do? And he is a famous actor. So the psychiatrist said, but why don't you get out of acting? If you feel you don't have any talent, no genius, and this is not the work you are meant to do, why don't you get out of the work? He said, what? After 20 years working in it, and I've almost become a famous star? You invest in your miseries also. You watch. When one problem drops, just see the real problem will shift immediately to something else. It is as if the snake goes on slipping out of the old skin, but the snake remains. The why is the snake. It was concerned when you were crying. Now crying has stopped. You are laughing. The snake has slipped out of the old skin. Now the problem is why. Can't you think of a life without any why? Why do you make a life problem? Life is so tremendously beautiful. Why not live it right now? Crying is a gesture of life. Laughing is also a gesture of life. Sometimes you're sad. It is a gesture of life, a mood, beautiful. Sometimes you are happy and bubbling with joy, dancing. That too is good and beautiful. Whatever happens, accept it, welcome it, remain with it. And you will see by and by you have dropped the habit of asking questions and creating problems out of this life. And when you don't create problems, life opens all its mysteries. It never opens before someone who goes on asking questions. Life is ready to reveal itself to you if you don't make it a problem. You make it a problem, your very creation of the problem closes your eyes. You become aggressive to life. That's the difference between scientific effort and religious effort, real religious effort. The scientist is like an aggressive man trying to snatch away truths from life, forcing life to deliver truths, almost with a gun, violent. A religious man, true religious man, is not there with a gun standing before life and asking questions. A religious man simply relaxes with life, floats with it. And life reveals many things to the religious man that it is not ever going to reveal to the scientist. The scientist will always be gathering crumbs fallen from the table. The scientist is never going to be invited as a guest. Those who live life welcome, accept it joyfully, with no question, but with trust. They become the guests. A lot of people on this planet have neurosis. And neurosis has never been an epidemic in the past as it is now. It is almost becoming a normal state of human mind. It has to be understood. The past was spiritually healthier. And the reason was that the mind was not fed so many things simultaneously. The mind was not overloaded. The modern mind is overloaded, and that which remains unassimilated creates neurosis. It is as if you go on eating and stuffing your body. That which is not digested by the body will prove to be poisonous. And what you eat is less important than what you hear and see. From your eyes, from your ears, from all your senses, you go on receiving 1,001 things each moment. And there is no extra assimilation time. It is as if one were constantly sitting at the dining room table eating 24 hours a day. This is the situation of the modern mind. It is overloaded. So many things are burdening it. It is not any surprise that it breaks down. There is a limit to every mechanism. The mind is one of those most subtle and delicate of mechanisms. A really healthy person is one who takes 50% of their time to assimilate their experiences. 50% action, 50% inaction. That is about the right balance. 50% sick thinking, 50% meditation. That is the cure. 50% thinking, 50% meditation. Meditation is nothing but a time when you can relax utterly into yourself. When you close all your doors, all your senses to the outside stimulus. You disappear from the world. You forget the world as if it no longer exists. No newspapers, no radio, no television, no computers, no people. You are alone in your innermost being, relaxed at home. In these moments, all that has become accumulated is assimilated. That which is worthless is thrown out. Meditation functions like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it assimilates all that is nourishing, and also it rejects and throws out all that is junk. But meditation has disappeared from this world. In the old days, people were naturally meditative. Life was uncomplicated, and people had enough time just to sit and do nothing, or look at the stars, or watch the trees, or listen to the birds. People had intervals of deep passivity. In those moments, you become more and more healthy and whole. Neurosis means you're carrying such a load in the mind that you are dying under it. You cannot move. There is no question of your consciousness flying. You cannot even creep. The burden is too much, and the burden goes on increasing every moment. One cracks up. It is very natural. A few things to be understood. Neurosis is the mouse endlessly trying the dead end, not learning. And not learning is neurosis. That is the first definition. You go on trying to the dead end. You have been angry. How many times have you been angry? How many times have you repented of being angry and still let there be a stimulus and your reaction will again be the same? You have not learned a thing. You have been greedy, and greed has created more and more misery, and you know it. Greed has never given anybody blissfulness, but you are still greedy. You still go on being greedy. You don't learn. Non-learning creates neurosis. Learning means assimilation. You try one thing and then you find that it doesn't work, you drop it. You move in another direction. You try another alternative. This is wise. This is intelligent. Just knocking your head against a wall where you know perfectly well there is no door to, that is neurosis. People are getting more and more neurotic because they go on trying the dead end. They go on trying that which doesn't work. The man who is capable of learning never becomes neurotic, cannot become. He immediately sees the point. This is a wall. He drops the whole idea. He starts moving into other dimensions. There are other alternatives available. He has learned something. No difference than the political scene of this planet. Centuries after centuries, years after years, doing the same thing, not learning anything different. It is said of Edison that he was trying an experiment in which he failed 700 times. His colleagues became desperate. 3 years were wasted, and he went on trying new alternatives again and again. Every morning he came with great enthusiasm, the same enthusiasm that he had come with on the first day, and 3 years were wasted. One day, his colleagues gathered together, and they said to him, "We don't see the point. We have failed 700 times. It's time to drop the experiment." Edison is reported to have said, "What are you saying? Failed? We've learned that 700 alternatives were wrong alternatives. It has been a great experience. Today I'm not going to try the same experiment. I have found another one. We are coming closer to the truth. How many false alternatives can there be? There must be a limit. If there are 1,000 false alternatives, then 700 have already been dropped and only 300 are left. And then we will be reaching the right point." This is learning, trying one experiment, seeing that it doesn't work, trying an alternative, seeing that it doesn't work, the wise man drops it. The fool clings to it. The fool calls it consistency. The fool says, "I did it yesterday and I'm going to do it today as well. And I will do it tomorrow." He is stubborn and pig-headed. He says, "How can I have it? I have invested so much in it, I cannot change it." Then he goes on insisting on it. And his whole life is wasted. And as death comes closer, he is desperate. He is hopeless. Deep down in his guts, he knows perfectly well that he is going to fail. He has failed so many times, and he is still trying the same thing without learning anything at all. This creates neurosis. The man who is capable of learning will never become neurotic. Now you can understand the climate of the planet, the politicians, and the priests, and the impact it has on the society that it has created. A disciple will never become neurotic. A disciple means one who is capable of learning, never become knowledgeable, always be in a process of learning. Knowledgeability drives people neurotic. It is not just accidental that professors, philosophers, psychiatrists, and scholars easily go mad. They have learned, and they have reached the conclusion that there is no more to learn. The moment that you decide that there is no more to learn, you have stopped growing. To stop growing is neurosis. That is the second definition. The world was very different in the past. Obviously, about 6 weeks' worth of sensory stimuli 600 years ago is what we now get in a day. 6 weeks' worth of stimulation information we are getting in a single day. About 40 times the pressure to learn and adapt. Modern man has to be capable of learning more than man has ever been before. Before and because there is more to learn now. Modern man has to become capable of adapting to new situations every day because the world is changing so fast. It is a great challenge. A great challenge, if accepted, will help tremendously in the expansion of consciousness. Either modern man is going to be utterly neurotic, or modern man is going to be transformed by the very pressure. It depends on how you take it. One thing is certain, there is no way of going back. The sensory stimuli will go on increasing more and more. You will be getting more and more information, and life will be changing with faster and faster and faster rhythms. And you will have to be capable of learning, of adapting to new things. In the past, man lived in an almost static world. Everything was static. You would leave the world exactly as your father had left it to you. You would not have changed anything at all. Nothing was changed. There was no question of learning too much. A little bit of learning was enough. And then you had spaces in your mind, empty spaces, which helped people to remain sane. Now there is no more empty space unless you create it deliberately. Meditation is needed today more than ever before. Meditation is needed so much that it's almost a question of life and death. In the past, it was a luxury. A few people, a Buddha, a Mahavira, a Krishna, were interested in it. Other people were naturally silent, naturally happy, sane. There was no need for them to think of meditation. In an unconscious way, they were meditating. Life was moving so silently, it was moving so slowly, that even the most stupid people were capable of adapting to it. Now the change is so tremendously fast, with such speed, that even the most intelligent people feel incapable of adapting to it. Everyday life is different, and you have to learn again. You have to learn and learn and learn again and again and again. I'll join you in the meditation, and I'll return to close us out. Take an easy and slow breath in through the nose, and an easy and slow breath out of the mouth. Remain still. Uncontrollable mental chatter is the cause of all suffering in our lives. The moment we stop the mind for even a few minutes, a powerful, peace-filled energy arises within us. Try it and see. To become the divine observer of your mind and step back from the 60,000 thoughts that run through your head each day, simply choose to become the ever-present, witnessing observer of each experience. Choosing to be vigilantly aware of this ever-present observer of your mind can make the typical tragic, dramatic day transform into a harmonic symphony of joy and love. For today, devote all your energy to watching the incessant chatter happening inside your mind without buying into its drama. It doesn't matter what the mind does today. Just be a super observer and watch with amazement. If you get tangled up in some important thoughts, try to stop them. Don't try to stop them. Change them or participate in them. Simply sit back, even deeper behind your mind, and relax your body. You can find it extremely entertaining to simply watch, listen, and have a good laugh all day long. Take this with you for the rest of the day, into the evening and night and the following morning. We will return here tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, and Saturday, October 29th, 2022, 3 p.m. Eastern, to continue our global guided meditation call. Be good to yourself.